Hello and welcome to Brandex Reviews. This one I'm going to be pretty much continuing what is Marvel season at the moment on brandexreviews.com. I'm doing a lot of reviews lately about this just because there's been a lot of stuff coming out, and I've also been reading a lot of graphic novels, so I've been kind of reviewing them as I've been going along. But in this one I'm going to be reviewing a Hulk story. It's a two-parter. It's called Future Imperfect. It was published in December 1992 and January 1993. It was written by Peter David. Now, it's a pretty good story. It's kind of futuristic, well, obviously futuristic, the title kind of gives it away, but I'm kind of going to go through it and just explain what happens, and I'll kind of skip through it, so I'm not going to be like reading every page out because it'd go on for ages. Plus, I'd recommend you buy this anyway. Now, I got this in this collection. It's one of the Platinum collection, or the Definitive collection it's also known. If you see it on the shelf, if you're looking at kind of the spine, that's what you're kind of looking out for, basically. I do like these Platinum collections because what they do is, I think they're hand-picked specifically by Stan Lee. I know he does the introduction to them. They have a collection of stories, and they usually start with, or always, from the ones that I've got, they always start with issue 1, the first ever appearance of whichever character it is. So in this one you get, just kind of to start with, you get the original Hulk comic that started it back in, I think it was 1963, or was it 62? Anyway. So yeah, you got a collection of best stories pretty much up to the present day. So, and you get quite good value for money in these as well. They're about, I think this was about £15 that it retails for, but you get them. I think this one's been out since 2008, so you can pretty much get them cheaper second hand off the internet, like I did. But anyway, the collection that's in is, like I say, it's Future Imperfect. It's basically a story about. Well, like I said, the future, but I think it's set around about 2070, and it's an alternative future as well. It kind of explains why it's an alternative future, but it's a typical kind of Blade Runner style future, dystopian future, I guess. And to start with, you don't really know how they've got there, why, what's going on, where this future kind of originated from, but it does explain as it's going through anyway. Now, I'll just kind of begin with it. Now, the artwork is very kind of 90s, so if you're a fan of kind of 90s comics, it's quite nostalgic to kind of read through. There's the usual kind of anti-gravity, space police kind of thing going on. Like I say, it's very kind of Blade Runner style to it. And as usual, there's the despotic police state, and you've got your rebels that are kind of fighting it all, kind of thing. So that's kind of where the story begins, and there's other characters that you probably aren't familiar with. I wasn't anyway. And so all this is going on. There's a bit of a fight in the streets between these rebels and the police, and all of a sudden the Hulk appears, and it's the Hulk as we know him, as we know him at this point in time in the 1990s when this came out. So the Hulk gets into a fight with the police as well. We don't know how he fits in with all this or why he's there. It just is. It does explain it later on. So there's like a thing that they call the Dog of War, and it's this giant metal thing that attacks the Hulk, and they seem to think that it'll just kill Hulk within like no time at all, that it can like crush adamantium within like 0.7 seconds or something like that. But Hulk has a pretty easy go, like destroying it and smashing its head off kind of thing, literally. So anyway, it cuts back to the main palace where the head guy is, the one that's kind of running the show, this despot, because at this point you don't really know who he is. So you've got some of his minions kind of crowding around there, and they're kind of saying, oh well, he's not to be disturbed, and one of them says, well actually, this is of like pretty bad importance that we do disturb him, because if we don't, then he's going to kill us for not telling him that the Hulk is here, basically. So they go in and tell the person that's in charge. It turns out the person who's in charge is this guy. It's called the Maestro, and the Maestro is the Hulk, basically, a futuristic version of the Hulk, but it's an alternative future where there's been 2 world wars, pretty much, a lot of nuclear fallout, that kind of thing. It's killed a lot of people on the planet, but the Hulk survived it easily, because the Hulk can survive a nuclear bomb as long as he's not a ground zero. That's how it explains it in here, anyway. So the Hulk has obviously survived everything, but the radiation's driven him pretty much insane. And because he was the strongest, natural selection, I guess, he's rebuilt the world in his own, ideals and stuff like that, based on his messed up head. And so that's who he is in it. So the Hulk is there to kind of take him on. You don't know exactly how he's there at this point, but all will be explained. So Hulk goes with some of the rebels to this underground base, and there's like a female character that's kind of taking him to see the leader of the rebellion, I guess you'd call it. So he goes down this elevator shaft, and then he goes into this room and he meets the guy. This is where you get to meet the person that's running the show. It's an old man and he's in a wheelchair. He's actually in Professor X's hover chair as well. Now this page was quite interesting. I spent about 2 or 3 minutes just scanning this entire picture because there's so much detail to it. There's so many artifacts. This is the room basically where the leader of the rebellion resides, and as you can see he's got quite a collection. There's Captain America's shield, you've got the head of a sentinel there, there's a skeleton. You can probably, I don't know if you can make this out, there's a skeleton just there, and you might be able to see that it's got elongated claws. That's supposed to be Wolverine's adamantium skeleton. If you look towards the roof you can see a load of helmets, like Magneto's helmet, all that kind of thing. There's Thor's hammer in a jar there. There's Dr. Octopus's tentacle thingies. Not a big fan of Spider-Man, so I don't know what they're called. What else is there? You can see Doctor Strange's cape. You can see a lot of Iron Man armour, including the Silver Centurion as well. There's just so much stuff in here. I could kind of go through it for ages. Like I said, I spent a long time looking at it myself. There's Professor X's wheelchair there as well, his original wheelchair.
I did actually find this image online, so I just thought I would show it here in clearer full screen, clearer resolution. But if you want to pause it and just have a quick look, you can do here. That's why I just thought I'd include it.
But anyway, that's that page anyway. So Hulk pretty much gets to meet who this guy is, and he says, "Well, who are you?" And the old guy pulls out a harmonica and starts playing it. And Hulk kind of realises from that who this guy is. The harmonica is relevant because it is actually Rick Jones. That's who the old man is. And the harmonica is a reference to the original Incredible Hulk story, where when Dr. Banner was affected by the gamma bomb on the test site because he ran out into the danger zone to kind of rescue this teenager that kind of trespassed. And the teenager was sat in a car, kind of showing after his mates that weren't there, but and he was playing a harmonica in his car. And so that's a reference anyway to the harmonica and who Rick Jones is, basically, in case you didn't get that. But anyway, I'll just kind of get back to where I was, kind of lost my page there. Here we are, yes. So it cuts back to the palace anyway, where the Maestro is. That's the Incredible Hulk, the future Incredible Hulk, the evil one. And they've got a rebel and they're kind of interrogating him, but they're not interrogating him using traditional methods. They're actually doing like a mind scan on him. So this is handy from the reader's point of view, because when they do the mind scan, it pretty much shows the reader what's going on, why the Hulk is in the future, how he got there, and what the agenda is, kind of thing. So we go back to, it shows what this rebel knows, and it kind of plays out in this kind of way. What happened is old Rick Jones sent his granddaughter, his great-granddaughter, back in time to get the Hulk to fight the Maestro, because he's the only person strong enough to do it. But they knew that if they just went back in time and approached the Hulk, he wouldn't believe them. It'd be kind of difficult to deal with. So what they did was they went back in time and spoke to Rick Jones instead. So this is them going back to Rick Jones's house. There's a bit of a fight breaks out because he doesn't really believe them. They explain who they are and they basically say, "Look, we need the Hulk. Can you have a word with him? Can we kind of borrow him and send him forward to sort of 2070, approximately that year, to sort things out, because we've got a bit of a nasty future that has kind of come about." So that's what they do anyway, and I'll kind of skip forward a bit because there's a lot of action that kind of goes on. They invade the rebel base. The Maestro kind of gets involved with this as well, and then he comes face to face with the Hulk. So you've got the Maestro and the Hulk kind of facing off against each other. So that's the end of part 1. Part 2 kind of carries on. There's a massive fight between the Maestro and the Hulk that goes on for several pages. And what happens is the Hulk's neck gets broken by the Maestro. It goes on for quite a bit, actually. Yes, kind of takes us up to there, so you can see his neck gets broken. So what they do then is they take the Hulk back to the palace, and he's pretty much out of it for a while. He's got a broken neck. Then they've got these whores basically at the palace. Well, I say whores, sex slaves basically. That are there. One of them is called, nicknamed Betty, because she has a resemblance to Betty Ross. That was the love interest for Dr. Banner originally. So there's a lot of stuff kind of at the palace going on. You get to see kind of how evil the Maestro is. They go into this kind of nearby village and they steal somebody's daughter that is pretty much now just of age enough to be a sex slave. So Maestro takes her back to the palace. So you kind of get to see how evil he is, and it's fairly dark really for a comic like this. There's quite a lot of conversation goes on. One of the things that is said between the Hulk and the Maestro is the Maestro basically says, well, you know, if I was to kill you, that wouldn't erase me from existence just because you're a younger version of me, because now that you've kind of come forward in time, it's a different timeline. And the Hulk kind of says, well, you don't know that for a fact, you're just kind of guessing there. So that's one thing that kind of goes on anyway. Just to kind of make you think, because obviously it's kind of rubbish if you think, well, if ultimately Hulk is going to become like this, I don't like the Hulk anymore, and you might stop reading it. So they kind of say it's an alternative Hulk, it's not ultimately what Hulk is going to become. So anyway, the rebels invade the palace, basically kind of skipping forward a bit. They build this tunnel into the palace, and Maestro's people kind of start to turn against him. Maestro goes back to the place where Rick Jones is, where the Museum of Artifacts is, you can kind of see there, and he attacks Rick Jones. Rick Jones puts up, not so much of a fight because he's kind of wheelchair bound, but he throws up Captain America's shield, and the impact kind of knocks him back, and he falls on top of Wolverine's adamantium skeleton and gets pretty much perforated by the claws. So that's pretty much Rick Jones, old Rick Jones, dying now. It's kind of funny as well. What happens is there's a lot of, some of the characters are actually have their ashes in jars, and Betty Ross, or Betty Banner as she's a married name, her ashes are in a jar, and it kind of gets smashed in the Maestro's face. Kind of nice one, Betty, thanks for that kind of thing, because he's kind of got in his eyes and stuff. More kind of fight goes on, and what happens is ultimately the Hulk sends the Maestro back in time. At this point it doesn't say exactly where and when he's sent, but he's just gone and he's out of it. So you kind of see he's being transported. Well, actually you don't even know if he's back in time, it might be forward in time, you don't really know at this point. So that's pretty much it in terms of him gone, him dealt with, so the future is kind of safe from him now. So what happens is, it shows you on the other side where the Maestro went, basically. So he's kind of in the desert somewhere, and he's saying, well, it doesn't really matter where this sent me. If this sent me into the past, I will live to face the Hulk again. If it's the future, I will just conquer it again. But then he kind of looks around and he can see a guy running out of a jeep, running towards a guy in a car in the desert. And he sees him talking, and you kind of get to see a bit of the dialogue, and it says, "Make them think I'm chicken." And the other guy says, "Come on, you fool, we have to reach the protective trench before the bomb goes off." And if you're a Hulk fan, you'll realise that dialogue is actually taken from the original comic from the 60s, where kind of referred to it before, the harmonica bit, where Dr. Banner's running towards young Rick Jones to kind of save him from a gamma bomb going off. And you can see that dialogue actually occurred there. This is the original comic. It's just published in the same book. So they've kind of gone back in time to the exact point where Dr. Banner became the Hulk, but the Maestro is actually at ground zero, so the bomb goes off and it kills him. So it's pretty clever, that as well. I like how the reference to the harmonica earlier on in the book kind of reminded you of that bit, so when this bit comes up it's kind of fresh in your memory kind of thing. It's pretty cool that they did that. That's pretty much it anyway. That's right at the end of the story. There's another kind of flash forward to the future again, and the Hulk is still there, but I mean you can go back in time anyway, so because they've got a time machine. So that's pretty much it. That's the story. It's very good. It's one of the better stories published in this as well. Not that there's anything wrong with the others. You get quite a few other stories in this collection. So, like I say, plenty of Marvel reviews at the moment at brandxreviews.com. I've just been going through a lot of stuff, so I've just kind of been reviewing it as I've been doing it. But that's not really the intention of the website. It just seems to be Marvel season at the moment. So, hope you got something out of that anyway. And if you want to check back, the website is brandxreviews.com, and we will see you next time for the next review. Thank you very much for watching.